And we're joined now with Lucien Greaves of the Satanic Temple. Now, Lucien, you're the spokesman for the Satanic Temple, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Of course, we had you on because one of the, I'd say, the bigger, smaller stories in the news this past week, for anybody who watches cable news or reads any news site, is the Oklahoma City monument of the Ten Commandments has been a big stink. And, of course, you guys have come in and decided that you wanted to place your satanic memorial monument with it. And I do want to get into the heart of that. But like I said beforehand, I've been watching some of these newscasts and reading some of the snippets out of the different news stories online and everything. And the portrayal of the Satanic Church, what they always say is, you know, you always hear children sacrifice a lot, or you hear just complete evil, like you guys are out to wreck Christianity and all this stuff. And I wanted to kind of give you a chance, first of all, to just talk about what the Satanic Temple actually is and what your actual belief system is about, to kind of clarify.
Well, yeah, those stories of satanic cults that go around murdering and committing ritual sacrifices and those kinds of things, those actually never existed at all. And but it's kind of from that mythology that some of the aesthetic is built that we latch onto. And you know, the question would be, why would you latch on to such a negative seeming aesthetic to begin with? But part of the drive is people who embrace an outsider status and are able to look outside of those arbitrary boundaries that are set up upon these superstitious mythologies or whatever else. But going back to biblical times, there's never been an unbroken tradition of Satanism. It's always kind of been derived from these accusations of heresy, from the witch hunts, and that type of thing. But later on, from Milton to Blake, Shelley, we had this kind of literary Satanism that came into vogue, where the whole mythology was reinterpreted, as Lucifer as the rebel angel against the universal tyranny, and that's the kind of mythology we grab onto. And this cultural construct, it's so powerful because it does resonate with people in such a way. It has this psychological power because it's beaten into our heads so often. And there's people who gravitate to the blasphemic also, and not just to offend people, but also in a way that they embrace it because they feel they're undermining the kind of cultural programming that they've been subjected to for perhaps their entire lives. So that's kind of the core of Satanism right there, the rejection of arbitrary authority, that embracing of the blasphemic, and the aesthetic, and the search for personal sovereignty and the pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah, I love that, because I think when I was trying to get a hold of you, I'd sent a couple emails back and forth, and I sent you that clip from Fox News, is that Gretchen Carlson show. And the reason I brought that up is because they had the all-star religious panel on with that Rabbi Shmuley and Bill Donahue of the Catholic League. And, you know, one of them had brought up that point about, you know, if you guys really wanted a monument to Satan, you know, it'd have the children sacrifice and show all the evils of the world and this and that. And I mean, as an atheist, you know, it's like, we don't really, of course, all of it to us is like, whatever, you know, we don't really buy into any of it. But I don't know, I can't say I'm an expert on Satanism, but from what I have read in the past and what I do know about it, I know that's not really the case. It's just kind of funny that that's always the first thing that you hear everybody jump to.
Well, it's particularly egregious when it's a rabbi saying that, because has he no sense of history? Some of this, a lot of what he was saying, or absolutely everything he was saying, in fact, had been attributed to Jews for centuries when they had never done any such thing either. And that kind of mythology was just converted over into this idea of Satanists when it becomes less politically correct to blame Jews, or, you know, or pagans before them, or early Christians by the pagans before that. So to hear a rabbi of all people throwing out this kind of slanderous blood libel, it leads you to believe he has zero education on the history of his own people.
Now,
Honestly, that makes me laugh so hard too.
well,
Like,
it is true,
It's so
though.
true. It's ridiculous. So on that note, I guess. So how do you feel about Fox News, just as an organization of news?
Like everybody
Well,
else does.
I've done 2 Fox interviews so far. The first one was actually with Alan Colmes, and all he did, these were both Fox Radio, and all he did was contest the idea that I'm a Satanist. He couldn't handle it. The fact that I don't believe in a personal Satan to him was altogether too much. And of course, there's always this question of sincerity because I employ humor anyway, so you can't both be sincere and humorous at the same time, of course. It has to be all doom and gloom, I guess, especially with Satanism.
Yeah.
But so that was that for that interview. He had me on for about 10 minutes before he gave up and hung up. And it was funny because on the website it said, call in, talk to the Satanist and that kind of thing. So I guess he didn't feel the conversation was going well. The other day I did Laura Ingraham. Yeah. And that was fun.
She's the worst.
Yeah, but at least she came out and she tried hammering away at me, and it was a pretty combative interview overall. But by the end, she was saying that she was attesting that she really did want to understand where I was coming from and that kind of thing, and she appreciated me being on, and she understood the value, the constitutional value of religious freedom that we're trying to put forward in Oklahoma. So it was really kind of surprising there. But the worst Fox representation, of course, are the ones in which they've never tried to learn anything about us, but speak about us anyways. And the Gretchen Carlson show there was one of those. I think they knew in advance they're going to talk about us, and Shmuley and the Catholic fellow couldn't be bothered to even take, just but a moment's time to look up anything about us. And then but the worst so far was yesterday or day before, January 9th. There's this show called Mensa Meeting on Fox.
Oh,
and it's hosted by...
that's the Imus show, right?
Yeah, Don Imus. And they started, the question to the panel they had was one of whether or not we should be allowed to put up our monument, as though it's up to them. And they didn't take a legal perspective. In fact, they didn't take an educated perspective at all. They started spouting the most ignorant things, and they were saying that we promote evil, and that our only goal is the goal of an anti-Christian goal. That's it. We're just an oppositional movement strictly. Shouldn't be recognized as a religious construct in the least. And we're just there to offend Christians, and we promote evil. But then when it went too far, when this guy Bernard McGurk, he actually said that they should be able to put the statue up, then they should be shot right next to it, and then we take it down. That's the exact quote. And so we contacted our lawyer immediately, and our lawyer sent a letter today to the Fox News Network asking for a public apology and a reprimand of this McGurk asshole, because he's calling for our execution on a national television.
Yeah, I think I saw something like that. Yeah, the only one I remember you, the blonde girl. I don't know her name. She kept saying that to her, the only reason she was against it is because Satanism is anti-Christian. That was her whole thing against it. But I guess since we're talking about this now, I posted this story, of course, we threw it out on our Twitter and on our Facebook and stuff. But for anybody who's not completely up on it, I'll just kind of sit up and then let you take over. Oklahoma City put up a 10 Commandments monument about a year ago, roughly. And I know the ACLU had sued to try and take it down. And I don't know exactly what all happened with that. One thing I heard was that they said it was allowed because it was private funding that put it up, which still didn't make any sense to me considering it's public property. But so that's kind of where you guys come in. You started a campaign now for doing fundraising on, was it Indiegogo.com to raise $20,000 so you could purchase a satanic monument, basically, so you could put it up next to it. Because freedom of religion, right? You're going to have one, you got to have the rest.
Right. Well, and also with the Ten Commandments, it wasn't just because it was privately funded, but they also made up this argument that it also wasn't a religious monument, that it's a historical monument. It commemorates a historical document that was somehow vital to the formation of American law, which is an idea I
Yeah.
would contest. I wouldn't say the Ten Commandments are unique to American law in the least, or constitutional law at all, because the first commandment directly
Yeah, well,
contradicts our
like I said,
First
as
Amendment.
atheists, we've gone over this on the show many times where we've seen where they try and force school and prayer or prayer in schools, excuse me, or the commandments or another religious symbol in another place, and they try and pull out that shit where this is a Christian nation, Well, that's completely false, and we've proven on this show. We've went through all the documentation, so.
Well, but they go with this historical document argument. So if we're to actually look at the Ten Commandments and compare it against law, we have to figure that they're taking a very broad view of the formation of law. And so for that reason, you look at our monument design, and it's the Baphomet, which is this goat-headed character, the three horns, and in a traditional pose. But the Baphomet comes from the Inquisition. It comes from the word came from the heresy trials of the Knights Templar in the 12th century. And Baphomet almost certainly comes from the word Mahomet, or it's a bastardization of Muhammad. And that was supposed to be the idol, the satanic idol that the Templars had been worshiping. And so you kind of see how different outgroups are satanized, and we feel that as a historical marker, this would commemorate those outgroups, the witch hunts, this kind of trial and error that we helped formulated secular law more than anything, with the presumption of innocence, the burden of proof, removed from supernaturalism, material evidence, that kind of thing. And today, in the United States, we're offended by the idea of anti-blasphemy laws, trying people for heresy, that kind of thing. So if you're going to look at it that way, I think our monument has just as good, at least, of a historical basis to be there. But what's funny is now that we've made that argument, now that I've been making that argument in the press, because they were saying, well, some of the representatives were saying our monument will be rejected on these historical grounds. Now all of a sudden the complaint has become, you guys aren't an actual religion. So I don't know if this state is thinking they might adopt the Ten Commandments and then accept it as a religious message. I don't know to what degree they're able to completely change course of argument to begin with and still have any credible argument within the court. This is something for the lawyers to hash out, but it's interesting to see how desperate they're getting, especially now that we've surpassed our funding goal.
Yeah, I noticed that you guys just got that the other day. And I thought it was interesting. You guys filed the petition or whatever the paperwork is this past week to go ahead and put it into motion. So now, how does that work? The Oklahoma legislature has to vote on it, or is there a council? I'm not exactly aware of how that works.
Well, we're going to have to follow up with them and ask ourselves. The Capital Preservation Commission, they're the ones who look this over. They oversee this, and we had to send the letter to them and then send our architectural designs to them. They were reported in the press Wednesday to have received our design. They haven't reached out to us at all. So all we've heard from them is the bullshit they've put out to the press. And one of those bits of bullshit was them saying that they had put a moratorium on new monument requests after sometime after they had solicited us for our architectural designs.
Yeah, I saw something
so
on that.
We had written them a letter saying we intended to donate a monument to them to complement and contrast the Ten Commandments. So then they solicited us for our architectural designs, and we put in time and resources to get those completed. Nowhere in that time did they contact us, as they could have. They knew we were working on this. to tell us that anything had changed. So we expect them to consider our proposal. And also, we have taken the position that we're willing to take a type of summary judgment on this with the understanding that if things change for the inclusion of the Ten Commandments monument, if the ACLU pushing forward ultimately wins and the Ten Commandments monument is to be taken down, that has ramifications for our monument too. We understand that. In the meantime, they can either consider our proposal or take the Ten Commandments down in the interim. As long as it's there, we feel our claim has standing.
That's the one thing where I was, like I said, that it kind of made me a little bit happy about what you guys are doing, for the fact that, like I said, you had a lot of groups that'll come out and protest against it, like we said, trying to put one religion above another, or, put it into the government sphere where it's not supposed to be. According to our Constitution, which they all love so much. But then I also heard, this is a little bit off that, but like a Hindu group and like the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster to also requisition. I think in part with yours, I think that's why they put in that moratorium, like you said, afterwards, because they started getting other requests, and they just, I guess they felt it was turned into a circus. But I think when you guys did that, I think the great thing about it was, those other ones, it's like whatever. But then you see Satanism and come out, and you guys put out that design. And I love it. I think it's awesome. But I know how some people look at it, and especially people of the Christian faith, and they're going to be very off-put by it. But to me, I love what you guys are doing, because it's fighting fire with fire. Like ACLU or us, we could complain about it, and it's such a struggle to try and get them to remove these things instead of continually trying to push them on us. But for you guys to come out, and it's almost like it's equal, it's like they're a religious group, you're a religious group. You're like, if you're going to have it, you have to let us as well. And I love the fact that you're putting that pressure on them. So even if it does go against you, where you won't be allowed to put yours up either. Like I said, from my viewpoint, it's still a victory, because
right.
You've done what we can't do almost. You know what I mean?
I don't have an atheist monument.
Yeah.
There's absolutely something entirely unique about Satanism in this thing, because I don't know if you saw what was going on in Florida with us, but over Christmas, there was a nativity scene allowed out on the Capitol Rotunda in Tallahassee. And some of our membership contacted us there, and they said, hey, why don't we put up a display also? So we filed the paperwork for them, and in the meantime, when after they said, okay, you need to show us pictures of your design, tell us how much space you need, that kind of thing. It took our membership some time to put together their design, and in the interim, the Capitol Rotunda had accepted a Festivus pole to be put there, made out of beer cans, and a flying spaghetti monster display also next to the manger scene. So we thought, well, that's fine. We're putting ours up too, and our guys in Tallahassee, they ended up making this diorama type display with an angel falling from heaven into these flames below. It said on a banner above it, it said "Happy Holidays" from the Satanic Temple, and there was actually a couple biblical verses on the side from like Isaiah or something about angel falling. So biblical quotes. But they rejected us, and you could tell that I had a feeling the Spaghetti Monster Church was disappointed that we should get that honor. But the ACLU wrote a strongly worded letter on our behalf to the Department of Management Services, and we have our lawyers still looking at how we can handle this situation, because it was obvious viewpoint discrimination. We even wrote to them. They rejected us and said that our display was grossly offensive for the holidays. And before we even went to the ACLU, we wrote them an email and said, all right, if you can point out to us any tangible, substantive deviations from any established community standards, so we know you're not just engaging in viewpoint discrimination, we're happy to work with you and revise our monument. They never even bothered to get back to us, which to me is infuriating, that they can just take that liberty, that you have people in public office who are so ignorant as to where their authority begins and ends, who they're representing, what they're representing, and why. that they do this, and this ignorance seems to be growing and growing. And I feel like we're a great antidote to it. We would have never applied to have a monument in Oklahoma if the Ten Commandments weren't already there. We've acknowledged several times that it may well be better if no monuments are there at all, but so long as there are, so long as there's a Ten Commandments monument there, it's so much better that there be a multiplicity of voices represented, rather than just allowing one group to co-opt the power and authority of the
And that's
state
true.
capital
And I'll tell you
in that
another thing:
way.
if they were to put yours up, I might actually drive up there and check it out. That's a couple-hour drive I might make.
So, one of the things that I've been sitting here listening to you talk. So how often do you feel that it's a great irony that you hear so many people come out and talk about how their religion is one of love and compassion, and then you get blasted on Fox News and called for your head, and basically, I mean, for lack of a better word, you're threatened.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is no better word for it. We were directly threatened. A guy calling for us to be shot in public. I mean, how ignorant does that get? And to make that kind of statement in the name of moral superiority, is the irony completely beyond somebody like that? I mean, at what level of stupid do you really have to be that you can't comprehend?
I think the thought that should depress you more is that I feel like the only reason he gets to say that is because about 90% of his listeners feel that way.
Right.
So,
well, that was a point he tried to make. Lucien, you probably remember this, or he threw out that, like, the majority of people are Christians, therefore it's like that majority rules kind of thing, which isn't really the way it's supposed to be in a democracy. I mean, not quite the way that he's pointing it out.
More so than that, we're not a democracy. It's a republic.
Well, we are a republic,
you have representatives, but and all the same, as he'd said, like moral superiority.
Well, that's what he was saying. He goes, well, it's a democracy, so it's majority rules. It's like, well, that's not really the way it is. That's why we have a constitution. We have those, but they never, like, yeah, if it's against their beliefs, then it kind of gets thrown out the window.
Well, yeah, this idea of it's undemocratic to have a minority represented on the public grounds is completely misguided. It's ignorant. We have a constitutional republic that defends the rights of minorities in the same way it defends the rights of any majority. It's if they wanted to go the free market route to see who could or couldn't, well, we've already raised the money for one thing, but if they kept it on private property, you wouldn't see us. We don't have property in Oklahoma. They opened this door. And it's like I said on the Laura Ingraham show, she was trying to ask me, well, would you approve of seeing a Nazi monument or any other vile hate group putting up a monument next to yours in response, and so on and so on. And I told her that that's not really a question for me. That's not something to throw at me as though I'm to blame for this. This should have been immediately in the mind of the legislature in Oklahoma before they put this through. It should have been the first question, is are we ready to accept multiple voices, even ones we disagree with, in our foreseen monument park. And that's how they described it. It's forthcoming monument park, because they were making the argument that this was open to everybody before they knew that anybody would take advantage of that.
I don't want to keep you on all night, but there's a couple other things I wanted to kind of go back on, because you brought up the Florida thing earlier. And like the first time I had kind of heard about you guys was actually about a year or so ago when Rick Scott was at the point trying to pass a law, which I think another state's recently done this, where they were going to pass, it's not really a prayer in school law, but it's a meditation in school, but it gives...
It's prayer in school, but they're trying to word it in such a way that they're acting like prayer in school was an unintended consequence of what
exactly. And I love the fact that, like I said, this is the first time I heard about you guys. You went down there to do an endorsement of him. And I thought, I may be wrong on this, so correct me if I am, but basically you guys are saying this is a great thing. We're totally behind this because now we can have people get up in front of these classes, children who are Satanists, and they could actually do satanic prayers or, talk about our religion in front of the class. So you guys put that different spin on it. And I love that.
Yeah, but there's a truth to that. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, it is funny, but look, I mean, like I said, with Oklahoma, we have no property there. So they open that door.
Oh, definitely.
And there's a satanic monument where they would have never seen anything like it anywhere else before. It's only on a public place we could possibly do that. So, like with Rick Scott, he opens up that door for inspirational messages in school. Well, we think, if we take him at his word, and this is just open to religion, this is a great boom for religious diversity because most of these children, of course, in this Judeo-Christian culture have been indoctrinated into some kind of Christian upbringing, and probably in the jurisdiction that Rick Scott is in, and they're never going to hear of these alternative or minority religions. And he opens the door for those messages to put themselves into school, and now these kids can hear about alternatives firsthand. So we thought, well, I mean, who's he really giving the advantage to?
That's true. Unintended consequences. You got to love that. One of the last things I wanted to bring up to you, and I love this. This is probably one of the best things I saw, and I've spouted the greatness of Vice. They have a television show on HBO, which I highly recommend. They do an online magazine, and I saw that in 2013 they voted their weirdest story. An incident that you guys had involving Westboro Baptist Church, where you guys performed a pink mass. And I was wondering if you could explain that for anybody that hasn't heard about it. I love this story. I think this is so great.
Well, I was in Boston with another one of the co-founders from the Satanic Temple, and we were in Boston all throughout the Boston Marathon bombing, and the Westboro Baptist Church had decided they wanted to come and protest the funerals of the people who were bombed because God brought the bombs. And to me, that was just, they're always crossing over the line, but that was really going too far. I really thought we really need to do something for these guys. And we actually went to meet with them, to confront them. They were going to show up in Boston. They didn't show up. I think it was a very volatile situation. They were wise not to. But they started tweeting these snotty little things about how they were there in spirit, and they had their God hates fags signs photoshopped in above the crowd in Boston, that kind of thing. So we thought, what kind of symbolic meeting can we have with them? How can we meet them in spirit in kind of a just as offensive kind of way? So we looked up to see where Fred Phelps's mother was buried, and his father, but we thought it was particularly poignant with his mother. So we went over to Mississippi, where she lay, and we did a couple gay ceremonies over her grave. We had a couple gay couples making out over her grave, and I ultimately rested my nuts upon the grave. It's the great culmination of this ritual ceremony, and we got pictures of all this, and we released we released some of the pictures in a press release to the public, and that story actually kind of took off. And we had declared that we had turned his mother gay in the afterlife to cause him further distress, hopefully.
So that,
but one thing the press really didn't report on was the full joke. There is that I had told them in just about every interview, but most of them didn't mention it, is that we don't believe in the supernatural, right? We don't believe we turned her gay in the afterlife. We were mocking their beliefs in such a way that we were taking it, saying that due to their beliefs, we believe that they were obligated to believe that Mrs. Phelps there was gay in the afterlife. And our beliefs are inviolable, just as the Westboro Baptist churches are. That's their big argument. They've gone to the Supreme Court with it. And despite what they say, nobody can challenge our right to believe that they believe.
See, I love that. And
afterlife.
see, I wasn't thinking about the messing with their beliefs. I thought you guys had stole that from the Mormons. I was telling Boggs here before the show. We were kind of looking at us, laughing about it, and I was like, they stole that from the Mormons, because the Mormons do that thing where they do the baptisms after death. Like, they'll do that with the Jews who died in the Holocaust. They'll baptize them as Mormon, so they can go up and meet Elohim or whatever. So I thought you guys might have.
That was part of it too. It all fell into place. It was all just the perfect storm that to the inevitability of my nuts resting on that grave.
Yeah, I mean, you get the grand finale.
Those were natural forces at work there. I couldn't. It couldn't be resisted.
I think you played that all wrong. I think you guys should have gone to a non-homosexual's grave and had straight sex on top of it, and turn them straight in the afterlife, and helped out the Westboro Baptist Church a little. Like, you start doing some good here.
Yeah,
for everybody.
Well, why are you guys always doing bad things?
And if you ever do that
problems
in the future, just send us a message and be like, "Hey, by the way,
we're gonna do
Boggs'
this.
idea came to fruition because I am looking that shit up."
I don't know how many people emailed us soon thereafter and were insisting we go find Jerry Falwell's grave.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's one right there. Well, when Pat Robertson dies, too, you can do a double up on both those two.
Does that mean a DP? Is that what you're going for?
No, not that kind of. No, not a DP.
Sorry.
You idiot.
What?
God damn it. Come on, dude. We've done really good in this interview. We've kept our cussing down and everything else.
I know. As soon as I start talking, the curse words come out.
We're so bad usually. Well, I don't really want to keep you too much. I mean, we've had you've been really generous with your time, and we bitch about this every week because everybody knows we do this fucking show at in the wee hours of the morning every Saturday night, because this is the only time we can get together. So why we never have anybody on. But you are gracious enough, and you're on the East Coast too, right? Yeah, so it's almost 1 a.m. there. So Lucian's been extremely gracious with his time. So, I mean, I don't want to keep you any longer and stuff. I really appreciate it. But if there's anything else that you wanted to say before you go, I mean, the floor is completely yours. If there's anything you want to promote, the website or any other endeavors you guys have upcoming.
Well, sure. Yeah, just check us out at thesatanictemple.com. And, we have a section in there where we just write up whatever campaigns we're working on. We have a lot more stuff forthcoming, and I feel like we're going to be a topic that the news is going to carry on with for some time. We're really kind of developing a nice press list and some nice contacts overall, and a huge amount of support. I know we were bitching a bit about some of the Fox News crowd and that kind of thing, but I can't tell you how happy I am, just the amount of support of email, and even looking around on the internet and seeing the comments on a lot of the articles, very supportive, and to the point where we get emails and they'll even start out with the caveat, I am a Christian, however, and yet they still feel comfortable reaching out to us and saying they support what we're doing for constitutional liberty, that kind of thing. So I think now is really the time. Now, somebody can come along and do this kind of thing, and it's really going to cause a difference, and I think for the better.
Well, like I said, I'm totally on board, even though, like I said, this show, we're a bunch of heathens, but, we're totally on board with what you're doing. We understand it, and hell, like I said, even if they decide that they want to put it up, I'm fine with that. I think that's a win, for our cause, even, to be honest with you, because, like I said, right now, it's Christianity or nothing, so we're totally on board with you, and I appreciate it. And hey, if you guys got some other stuff coming down the pike, hits up, man. We'd love to have you on again. You've been awesome.
Yeah, well, message me anytime. I'll always come back and
all right.
check out.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Lucien. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.